1, we are told that there was a village, and this village had some lepers, 10 lepers. And Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem. And as he was approaching, he came across these 10 lepers who were not actually in the village, even though they came from the village, but they were outside the village. There are several thematic areas in the entire story that I would like us to focus on for the purposes of giving this passage its rightful place in our understanding of the mystery of the gospel. First, as we are introduced to a village environment, village represents a social class that is vulnerable in many ways. Village represents a social class that is stricken with poverty, with less social amenities as compared to those who are in urban settings. These are people who depend on handouts, even when politicians come by. These are people who are affected by social complexities of living in a congested area. These are people who are vulnerable. These are people who can be wiped out when there is pandemic because of their social ways of life. They always come together. They are always bounded by certain aspects of living. People in a village, they are also believed to be less educated, or, so to say, illiterate for that matter. People in the village are always seen as backward. They fit every adjective that is not positive. And this is the reason why we always say you can remove someone from the village, but you cannot succeed removing the village from that person. All negative notions about village. Here were people who were in the village, and 10 of them had problems with health. And because they had problems with health, they had to come out because they were subjected to ridicule. You know, when HIV/AIDS was first reported in Africa, it was a life and death issue that no one would dare even to associate, even to greet, even to come closer with those who were affected. Most people died, not because the disease killed them, but because of the trauma, because of the way they were being treated, because the community could not tolerate their presence. When I became a priest, the first person I buried was a person who suffered from HIV/AIDS. Far away, 1989. This was a lady that was alone, and the mother was left alone only with the mother. Even the cell group members could not go to their home. Even friends no longer visited them. I paid a pastoral visit, and this lady was really frustrated because she could carry the daughter outside in the morning to the scorching sun, and then later bring her back. The lady was thin and could be carried by even an old mama. I looked at the way this woman showed love to her daughter and the way all her friends had run away from her. Then the picture of the 10 lepers came handy to my mind. These people were in the village. They came from the village, but they were not accompanied by anybody else. They were alone. Village environment can sometimes be hostile to us. Then another thing about this story, apart from presenting a village environment, is that it also presents social misfortune that is likely to affect us. The plague that seemingly affected a number of people in this village predominantly could be seen in men. Because there's 10 men. We are not told that there were some women who were equally affected. But we are only told of the story of 10 men who were affected by this plague. Imagine for a man to be in such a situation where your skins peel off, where your beauty is destroyed. Even the possibility of getting a lady for marriage becomes thinner and thinner. Because when people come together, they are also pulled to one another by our physical appearance, in most cases. But here we had 10 men who were not in the village, though they belong in the village, but they were outside. They were alone. And in that moment in time, we don't know how they were thinking. They were sharing their sorrow. They were sharing their predicament. They were just alone, wondering when they were going to die. Social misfortune sometimes befall us. And when such misfortunes befall us, we must find a way of dealing with it. This one brings us to another level, which is called advocacy. Advocacy simply means the raising of voice in search of help. Who are those who can raise their voice in search of help? The unity of purpose anchored on one denominator in this passage, the common misery. Misery can bring us together. Our social status in society can be a reason for us to be together. But that can be temporary at some point. Because we could be together. We could be together because we have a common interest. But once that common interest is addressed, then we can end up disintegrating. What bonded these people together was their misery, their isolation from the rest of the community, the pain they were feeling. the sense of rejection that accompanied the nature of their ailments. That is what bonded them together. And that propelled them to have some ground from which they can be able to voice their grievances. The raising of voice for help. Their ears were always alert should someone pass by who could be able to render help. Their eyes were wide open to see if any help could come by. Unity of purpose, anchored on one common denominator, common misery. And again we are told, it paid for them. When they were united in voicing their grievances, when they were together, they managed to recognize the presence of one Jesus Christ. When they recognized the presence of Christ, they never remained the same. We are told in this passage that they cried loud, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." Not have mercy on me, on us. Being communal in our approach, as opposed to being individualistic. More often than not, we are so much individualistic. We think of ourselves. Help me, not help us. Do for me, not do for us. The story here presents a case of communal approach, a case of unity of purpose, a case where all of us must come together and see things differently and voice our grievances together. Today, the church is faced with numerous challenges. The challenges of COVID, the challenges of poor performing economy, the challenges of denominational character. So many challenges are facing the church. Politics infiltrating into our pulpits, and we give them credence. All these things, they come on our way. But one thing is certain. How do we use our unity for our own liberation? How do we use our common interest to further the cause of our holistic healing as a people, as individual, or as a nation, or as world vision? How do we use that? These are critical things. These are critical questions that we must raise and we must seek an answer for. Jesus, Master, they cried, help us. When we are united, someone will listen to us. When we are united for a common cause, there is always a listening ear somewhere. We must recognize that ear. We must recognize the presence of our Lord Jesus Christ at a time like this. So recognizing Jesus as the Master brought a new dawn in the life of these 10 lepers. And we are told that Jesus listened to them and gave them one command: go and show yourself to the priest. This again brings another dimension. As we look at this passage, the role of the priest in approving our healing. Priests were required to issue certificates of cleansing to prove or to allow an individual to be accepted back into the community. They had a major role in doing that. So by sending these people to the priest, Jesus in a way was telling them, go and do according to what the law requires. Go and do according to what the tradition expects of you. Go and do the right thing that cannot be challenged. Sometimes we are overwhelmed by emotions to a point that we ignore these legitimate issues in life. Jesus did not want shortcut. That's why he sent these lepers, go to the priest. The idea was to seek the certification from the priest that now these people are clean. Now they can be readmitted into the community. They can now be part and parcel of our groups or of our denomination or of our church or of our whatever it is. Someone has to give that justification. There was no shortcut. Today we are living in a world that we cherish shortcuts. We want to be certified to be well, knowing so well that we are not well. How often do we seek even certificates which are faked because we want to achieve something? The priests of this time could not issue certificate anyhow. They had to be evidence-based. They had to be proven beyond reasonable doubt that these people had actually been healed. Fellow friends, we must reject any shortcuts in our life. We must be ready to face the scrutiny in the process of our wholesome acceptance into the community of saints. Now, I want us to look at 4 things again here. People react differently when they are lifted up. These lepers, when they voiced their grievances, when they pleaded for mercy, they said this. They felt healed. And they reacted differently, just like any ordinary human beings. People react. Some will feel good and move on with their life. Like these lepers, they felt good when Jesus commanded them to go and show themselves to the priest. They felt good. I believe so. But they moved on. Some would feel thankful in their hearts. I want to believe, or I don't know, whether these other 10 lepers, or these 10 lepers, they felt thankful. But what I know, some people would feel thankful in their hearts, but will still move on. The third group would feel touched and demonstrate their gratitude the way the Samaritan leper did. You know, there are also the last category of people who will feel a sense of entitlement and just walk away. We have some people, even if you give them anything, they will never say thank you. We could be having even a brother somewhere, even a sister, even a relative, even a friend. You give them anything, to them that is an entitlement. We have had such cases. Even myself, I've had such cases. You support someone, oh, it's a sense of entitlement. You have done what you should have done, even much better. To them, gratitude is remorse. These categories, we may be part of them. But we are told that of the 10 lepers who were bonded seriously by common misery, upon receiving the healing, they walked away without a word to the Lord. They just walked away. They left and walked away. My friends, sometimes we can be overly excited and decide to walk away after receiving God's blessings. Maybe promotion at our place of work. We simply say, I really did it. I am connected. I talked to the boss himself. My father is known. My relative is known, connected me. Oh, we paid for it. I did the interview. I was the best. You think you deserve it. So to you, there is no reason why you should be grateful. There's no reason for you why you should go back and say, the Lord, thank you. If it were not for you, I would not have done it. We rely extremely on our intellectual ability. We rely extremely on our might. We rely extremely on things which we think we have control over, and forget about the mystery hand behind our healing. So what is it that binds us together as fraternity of world vision? What is it that binds us together? Is it the mystery of the people we are serving? What is it that binds us together? Is it a sense of serving the Lord in every way that He wills for us? What is it that binds us together? That will compel us to go back and reflect and re-examine and then come up and say, God, we thank you. Let's look at this Samaritan as I conclude. The leper. He demonstrated a spirit of commonality. The first thing, the spirit of commonality. In advocating for his plight, when the number matters, he was together with the rest. Even at a time when he was not one of their own in terms of ethnicity. You know the ethnicity politics or religion in Kenya, which is a cancer indeed, whereby you are seen in terms of, or you are judged according to the color, according to the language, according to the region, according to the class where you belong. Sometimes you can be forced to be yoked together because of the circumstances. This Samaritan found himself in a similar situation when he was yoked together with some Jews who had no regard for gratitude. But they had to be together because they were bonded together by common misery. When number matters, it gives strength to our case when we are together. Even though he came from a different community, hence outside the entitlement circle, he found strength in the unity of others. That's one thing about the Samaritan leper. The second thing about him is that he recognized his social position and demonstrated deep emotion to the life giver. He felt that now that this person has saved me, now that I am cleansed, now that I am healed, what is it that I can be able to do? He recognized his social status as one thing. We must recognize who we are. We must recognize who we are before others and who we are before God. The third thing, he came back to show gratitude. And this one demonstrates the fact that gratitude has a greater impact in our healing process. When we are healed, we show that gratitude. We become different. Gratitude has a greater impact in our healing process. Holistic healing takes place when we have personal encounter with the Lord as opposed to communal encounter. When these 10 lepers came together and they confronted Jesus, their interest was to get cured, full stop, period. And they got what they wanted. And that was enough. But this leper realized there's something more than being cured. Healing and cleansing and all that go with it requires something more than physical restoration of our health. We must have personal encounter with the Lord for us to experience the difference. This leper, the Samaritan, experienced a very dramatic transformation in his life the very moment he left the other 9 and came back to Christ to have an encounter with him. That is the message. He was not like the 10 lepers the other 9 lepers who were healed. Those ones felt they were okay. But they were not okay because they left the most significant parts of the entire process, the personal encounter with the Lord. Yes, thank you for that elaborate introduction of myself. I'm just a servant of God and serving in the Diocese of Bondo. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share with World Vision community the thoughts about our Christian vocation in respect to the ministry of gratitude. I call it ministry of gratitude because when we talk of authentic gratitude, so many things come into our mind. One is there authentic gratitude? And is there gratitude which is not authentic? Those are puzzling indeed. But deep in our hearts, we know that there is an inner meaning of each and every of those. My main vocation is to prepare people for the ministry. This had been my main vocation for a very long time, even throughout my ministry at the university. But I was called 4 years ago to be a servant of servants for the Diocese of Bondo, the Anglican Diocese of Bondo. And one thing which I've learned over the years is that gratitude is a great component of our Christian vocation. Just saying thank you, just saying it is all right, just saying it is well with your soul, just saying those kind words in itself gives us a clear testament of who we are, of what we stand for, of what we are able to do to transform our world, to transform our society, to transform our churches. In as much as we have read a lot about the story of the 10 lepers, and I know most of us have preached from it, and I know that when we were gathering for this session, we must have gone deeper to understand this story from other perspectives. There are certain things I want us to share which will inform our innermost understanding of the significance of being grateful at all the times. I personally, just to give my own personal testimony, I was brought up by a widow. All our children, we were 10 in total in our family. My father died in Uganda when he was still very young. We could not make ends meet. And there was a time that I had to come out of school. I had to tell Mom, it is enough. We have suffered long enough. I want now to help you at home. My mom insisted, my son, you are my first son. You must go back to school. I started reasoning with the poor widow, bringing logic where it could not work, saying that there's no point for me to go to school because there is no money. I passed CPE that time, it was up to standard 7. I was admitted to a school. I walked long distance going to school to ask for permission to be allowed to go to school there without fee. The headmaster, the way they were called those days, not the principal, looked at me and asked me, young man, what do you mean? You don't have anything. I told the headmaster, I don't have anything. I've walked all the way. Even something, Lord, okay, when can you get something? I told him, I'm sorry, I don't have anything. Then he looked at me and said, in that case, I cannot help you. If you had something small, I would listen to you. I came back home and I cried and I told my mom, this is the end of the story. In this our family, no one will ever go to school. And I cried, I did not eat. Later, my mom called me and said the following words. My son, all the blessings of God are always hidden from those who do not have eyes. Go back to school. You just go and repeat as if you had failed. God will open a way, and your blessings will always be there for you. I want to tell you, friends, those powerful words transformed my worldview. I looked at my mother and I loved her for her pastoral look, for her pastoral words of wisdom that changed my mind. I went back to school as if I had failed. That time, I was the best student in the district. And God started opening the ways. God started opening the ways. I went up to school. She managed everything until I reached Form 4. That's when I had a problem again. So term 1 of Form 4, I did not go to school. Until a woman, an elderly woman in our church, one day asked me why I was not going to school. I told this woman, my mom has tried her very best. We have sold all the cattle we had and everything. Now she's on the verge of selling a family land so that I can go. This elderly woman told me, go back to your mother and tell her that I'll be visiting in the evening. When she came, she told us one thing: prepare a fundraiser and I'll be the chief guest. Don't bother about making food. Don't bother about anything else. You just prepare and make strong tea. Everyone will take it. I'll be the guest of honor. That's what happened. I managed to get enough money to take me back to school after spending one whole term outside. How grateful should I be to those two beautiful women who God transformed their hearts to open ways for me. Up to this moment, my mom passed on many years back, but this woman is still there. I've decided to adopt her as my personal mother, always visiting her, ensuring that she has everything she needs in her old age. How do we express our gratitude for the things that the Lord has done unto our lives? Using others, using unsuspecting helpers to come on our side. This is what being grateful is all about. Looking beyond yourself. Seeing beyond the obvious. And being emotional at a certain point when you also experience or encounter the feelings of others. We must always be driven by compassion. Our experience, they are good enough to prepare us for a life of authentic gratitude. That is the gratitude that comes from the heart. The gratitude that comes from the heart that has been touched, not only by the realities of our time, but also by the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, whose healing mission touched the entire world. I want now to take you through the story of the 10 lepers and how it is informative